We've obviously gotten warmer again because it's Charlotte and every day is warm, it feels like. But
Right.
even we've got some cold weather today. Like feels like 31, which is very rare.
Ooh, I don't know how you guys are surviving. We've got
A lot of the people here, I'm surprised, honestly, with the way they are so dramatic.
I feel like as soon as you go south of, a couple of states, people turn into they just don't understand how to deal with weather. Whereas up here, we're just sort of sick of it.
Yeah, it doesn't really ever stop for you all, does it? Episode 168. 5 losses on the bounce, Adam. Do you know the last time? Did you hear that stat on NBC today? The last time that we lost 5 on the bounce was in League One.
Right.
Under I believe it was under Russell Slade or just as Gus came in before that season where we went back up.
Great. Yeah, that's good.
Not sure what the record for 6 is, but we'll be probably matching that Wednesday. Given
I was going to say it feels more likely that we're going to match this record than what we were joking about before, which was the draws in a season record. Like those were the sort of the glory days, the halcyon days of what we were talking about. What felt like 10 games ago. Now we're like, can we just score a goal?
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Liverpool was obviously never going to be an easy game, though. At least, like prior to this, we had games where we really should have been taking away points. At least against Liverpool at home, we're always going to be struggling. And on the balance of play, I don't think we played as bad today as we have done in previous games. But an L is obviously still an L in the column. How are you feeling about that starting 11 that rolled out? Because there are a couple of changes in there as well. And just overall vibes. Early kickoff, the Amex, East Coast, West Coast, 4:30 in the morning for them getting up for this.
Yeah, that's why you can't live on the West Coast, It's beautiful and all that stuff. But yeah, I'll tell you what, 4:30 start a game. I think that's one you just don't go to bed for, is it? You just stay. Imagine if you stayed up all night for that. But so I'm sure someone's done it. I thought the team was all right. Again, I know we can't really play with the back five at the moment, just because from a player wise, we just don't have them.
Yep.
So we're playing with this sort of makeshift back four with Dunk and Veltman, and then Kukurea and Lamptey. I was glad that Alzate stayed in the team. I wanted Lallana to get the start. We talked about that last time around, and obviously he made an appearance, albeit very, very briefly. There wasn't really too many faults. I looked at the bench. I was like, who would I really like to be in that's available? Apart from Lallana, it seems like Mwepu isn't quite ready yet. He's still working his way back. We might have seen him if we didn't have to waste a subbing Lallana on and off. But just so happens that we did. And then
Lallana loves a good quick cameo, doesn't he? Remember last year when he came on and promptly walked down the tunnel after about 48 seconds? Do you remember that?
I do. I saw a stat a little bit earlier. I can't remember the other player who did it, but he's now tied in the lead of the player that's been most subbed on and off in Premier League history.
Oh dear.
Which just about sums it up for him, doesn't it? And there was the other stat I saw earlier that the last time that we beat Liverpool was in 1984. So pre-zygote of Adam and Josh. So outside of that, I mean, you go into this game and you think, just don't embarrass us. I don't think we got embarrassed. It would have just been nice to score, to prove that we can score a goal from open play. And right now, it doesn't seem possible. Yeah, it doesn't seem possible right now. It really doesn't.
Watford away was our last game we scored from open play.
And does it even count against Watford?
I would love to know when the last time we scored a goal from open play at the Amex. I don't have the time or energy to go back and have a look. But I mostly agree with you though. Moda, I was glad to see him off. I don't even think he's played poorly. I think he's just looked tired.
Yeah,
I think he just needs a rest. Like you, I would have loved to have seen Mwepu on, but I understand he's literally just come back, so I wasn't expecting him to start, even though I wish he could have, because I really do think he's going to help out when he's back. Basuma back, I expected to really see him put himself in the shop window like we talked about for a couple of weeks. That didn't happen. Another pretty subpar performance from him. I thought Alzate outworked him in that first half, personally. And then that's why I was a little bit disappointed to see Alzate come off at halftime. I know you were happy with the Lallana sub.
Well, for a very wonderful brief 45 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but we started like a house on fire, didn't we? We came out of the traps very quickly, quite the opposite actually. We had a great first 10 minutes and a shit last 80.
I messaged you. I was like, "What is going on? What are we doing?" Because there was that really nice sort of snapshot, was it, or that Mope had as well?
Yeah.
And we looked like we were swarming up the right side. There was a ton of press going on. So yeah, it was the opposite to what we've seen lately. And then it just started. Liverpool just started to impose themselves on the game, and it ultimately just ended up being a quality thing. Really, it felt like, and they're going to score some of those goals if they get a chance. There's a decent opportunity that they're going to put it in the back of the net, and that's what we saw. I did want to check on while you were talking. I was checking back on when we actually did score a goal from open play at the Amex. And you sort of got to go fairly long way back. I looked at the Chelsea game and realised that was that bullet header from Adam Webster. That was the 18th of January. The game before that was Palace. That was an own goal from Palace that we scored there. So it wasn't then. You have to go all the way back to Boxing Day against Brentford is when the last time that we scored a goal at home at the Amex from open play.
Yep. So we are yet to score a goal in open play at the Amex in 2022, and it's March the 12th at time of recording.
Yeah, I wouldn't even. Do we even need to say? Yeah, correct. Yeah, it is.
So we haven't scored a goal at home this year from open play.
But it's not even that good
Palace
before
have scored as many goals as us at the Amex.
Yes, yeah, remarkably and horrendously, that is true. And then even prior to that, we lost at home, didn't score it to Wolves, drew 0-0 to Leeds, and then you have to go all the way back to the 6th of November against Newcastle.
Yep.
So
Wolves, I'm forever going to have an asterisk on that Wolves game because that really should have been called off. That was some real shenanigans there.
It should have, but we are clutching at very big straws.
No, on a Wolves perspective, though, I think that it changed their whole season that week where they had 2 games that they should have had called off, denied by Wolves, and they won both. And it changed their entire season around from that really 13th, 14th, really poor thing. And that 6 points boosted them. And they've been, they're 8 now and been great ever since.
Here's a bonus point for you, by the way. Who was our captain on that day against Wolves?
Against Wolves? Oh, my God. Pascal Gross.
Dan Burn. Yeah, it's been 5 minutes since he's been mentioned as a Brighton great, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Not on Twitter, it ain't.
No.
Lots of people believe that the loss of Dan Burn today was the reason we got beat. Can I? And I'm really not kidding. That's quite the prevalent thought process.
Okay.
Can you find a moment in time for either of those goals where Dan Burn would have prevented them? Because the first one was a goal that the Albion have conceded time and time again this year, with everybody at the back. It doesn't matter who it is. I do remember Josh Sargent beating Dan Burn specifically to a ball just like this and then missing an open goal because he didn't hit it hard enough.
That was horrendous, wasn't it? That was back in, it was that 0-0, wasn't it? I think.
We should have been about 2 up by that point, and from then on it was just going to be a 0-0 forever because you could just tell nothing was ever going to go in.
No.
But if Norwich are good enough to carve us open with one of those lofted over the top 3 balls, FIFA-esque counter attacks, Joel Matip on a current player of the month.
Player of the month, Joel Matip.
Yeah, Adam Webster-esque run. and a great ball over the top for Luis Diaz to almost kill himself getting to. With
Yeah,
Sanchez, Sanchez pulling out
Sanchez
of
with a
Brock
sort of nice
Lesnar.
open palm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that anyone currently in that Albion backline would have been able to prevent it because it's something we've been susceptible to all year with or without Dan Burn at the back. How do you feel about that?
I do. Yeah, I agree. Just because you think about those opportunities, you think, okay, how do we prevent them? You have to have a very organized back line where you're going to play offside trap. You have your leader there. That's Dunk. Okay, he was playing. And you're like, okay, we fail on that. Who else do we have there? Well, we want our quick players in. We don't have quicker defenders than Kukureya, Lamptey, or Veltman. Those are our three fastest defenders. So yeah, unless by some miracle Dan Burn sort of levitated and stopped that ball from going over. No, it was always going to go in. Luis Diaz, it was a really nice little touch on it as well. He's been a very impressive signing for them, just in case the rich get richer, don't they? Just what they needed. Another promising attacker that means that they can now offload one of Mane, Salah, or whatever, depending on the contract negotiations, and still be fine. What a shocker there. But I mean, there's a few flashpoints that came. So no, the short answer is no, they shouldn't have. It wouldn't have stopped even with Dan Burn. I do want to go answer the Dan Burn thing once and for all, though, a little bit. Is that
once and for all is a brave claim, Adam.
Yeah,
we've got 10 more games this year that any game
we'll just talk about it each time.
Dan Burn. Yeah.
The problem that's arisen is yes, we are shorthanded. So yes, Dan Burn would help us out right now. He would. But again, like you've mentioned, like Craig's mentioned, like I've mentioned, like a number of people have mentioned, you still take that deal because of the value you got at that moment in time. That money is still going to be in the bank when we come to the transfer window. And his being in the team for the remainder of this season wouldn't have turned our fortune so much that we would have turned around a 5-game loss streak where we've conceded 11 goals and scored 1. No one player, unless you're signing, I don't even know if you put Haaland in this team, whether it would overcome most of that. So Dan Burns, certainly not. Would he help stop the bleeding a little bit right now? Yeah, I think so. Maybe he stops 1 or 2 goals because he was in great form. He's continued his great form, and he was impressive in the back line. But you still take the deal. It just happens to be that it's proving the doubters correct right now because they just look at the results and say, Dan Burn would have helped this. And yeah, maybe you're partially right. It doesn't change the reality of the situation.
I wonder if in the summer, say we get to Christmas this year, I suppose. Say we get to Christmas this year and Undav's on 10 already, knowing that we signed him with the Dan Burn money. Do you think that they would still be upset that we signed Dan Burn? Because that's also the reality, right? That we've made a net profit by selling Dan Burn and signing Undav and the Polish fella, the Kozlowski.
Who I think he started up front last night for USG with Undav, bizarrely.
I've heard he's like a very attacking midfielder, borderline like secondary striker player. So maybe not. Like maybe that really is what he is.
It's hard to get tons of tracking on the Jupiler Pro League, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, that's what LiveScore was telling me. Although they often do get it wrong. But it seemed like he was playing, up top or maybe as a number 10 to Undav, which is great for the future for us, really. No, I think of anything that's been proven over the last 2-3 years, no one admits when they're wrong, do they? So people will just continue beating that same drum. And, oh, God, no, we would have finished 10th if Dan Burn was with us. But yeah, Undav's great. We could have still afforded him. That would be the answer. So no, I don't think it changes anything. But the only thing that's personally...
Tony owns USG. Could have gave him for free.
Yeah, it could have been. He could have just handed over, a couple of quid and it'd been done. But there's a countdown now in my head, pseudo subconsciously, of just when July 1st hits. Because I don't want to put too much pressure on Undav, but was it a hat trick he scored yesterday?
Yes, it was.
It's hard to get cross ratings to compare the top performers across like the top 10 European leagues. It's always the top 5, so Belgium aren't included. But Undav would be up there alongside some of the most impeccable strikers in world football right now from his goals per minute rating. He has been incredible. I think he's had, is it 24 goals in 30 appearances and then a few assists as well? Or is it more than that? I checked it a little bit earlier.
I think he's had more assists than that, but yes, just about.
He could be the saving grace, and that's the thing. I think we all have to look. We're probably not going to be relegated at this point. Wonderful, because there's 2 abject teams in this league, and we're going to be one team worse than us. So it's really just about let's survive till the end and let's get that premium striker in the club finally, hopefully.
Yeah. I actually did. I think it was last summer. I did a deep dive into the prolific nature of attacking players from the 5 outside of the 5.
Yeah,
because a lot of people were curious about it, and I spent like a week pretending to work doing that instead. And I had the Eredivisie, the Championship, the Pro League, not the Turkish League, and 2 others. I can't remember who they were. And Belgian Pro League strikers and attacking midfielders, on average, are the best of the 5 in the Premier League as they translate. They also have a slightly smaller sample size than the Eredivisie and a lot smaller sample size than the Championship, but they are the most prolific. So there is, you never know.
That confirms my bias, so I choose to believe it.
The stats are in our favour.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
24 goals and 10 assists in 30 appearances.
Yeah.
49% goal participation. He ain't bad.
No, he ain't. And you mentioned, Luis Diaz coming in and being one of those players that gives Salah less bargaining, right? Less negotiation room. Kozlowski, if he is do what he's doing and playing in those positions and plays well for the remainder of the year, you've got to argue that he's presenting the same problem for Trossard, right? Because he's not exactly been in his greatest of form. He's in a contract year next year. And if he's going to come in and provide the same option, him and Mitoma, for half the price, it seems like we're playing the same game with a lot less rupees, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe. I think that's the intention of the club, and we've talked about that before, right? It's how do we recycle, make a profit on these players that we've helped, I guess, evolve, and then bring in others and repeat the process and continue to make money out of that. Hopefully, I think it's a little bit too soon for those players. You're trading a player that's arguably at his peak in Trossard for others that are very much not at their peak yet. You could argue that they're not even at their, early stages. They're the pre-early stages, but we'll see. I mean, we have to bring in some. I know we discussed this, but we have to bring in others. And I think what we saw today, if we go back to the game a little bit, there just wasn't a spark there. And you looked around the pitch and you thought, who could maybe give us that spark? We normally look at Basuma for that. I guess that raises a question of, I know Potter came out early in the week and potentially said some crap about him having a knee injury. That's maybe true, maybe not. To help explain some of his poor form. How much do you think he's taken off of his value over the past few weeks for us? Because previously you looked at him before the AFCON and even during the AFCON.
Yep.
And you said blue chip player. The zeros are being added daily each game. And then now you look around and you go, God, what can we get for him?
Yeah. And my concern more so isn't the form, but the attitude.
Yeah.
Like these big clubs are going to look at him and think, if he's down in tools at Brighton, we're not wasting our time with a player like that. His ego's too big, blah, 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 blah. And then Villa come back with 28 million again, and we have to say yes come the summer, because they're willing to take a poor attitude player like Coutinho and others, which has been a great signing for them, hasn't it? Because Philippe Coutinho has played very well.
Imagine if their midfield, at Villa's midfield next year is Basuma and Coutinho. What alternate reality is that? I
mean, they've got the money for it. They're loaded, aren't they?
Yeah, tell you isn't.
I think
Chelsea, wonderful.
Yeah, we will talk about that.
Actually,
when we get to the end of this, we've got so much to talk about that ain't Brighton really, because it was just another bad day at the office.
A ton of that. We've not even got to the end of this game, even.
Not even got to half time.
No, which is probably intentional, because the less we talk about it, the better in some ways. But yeah,
Mohamed Salah, very wasteful today up until the penalty, wasn't he? Triple captain, I believe, Adam.
Well, so I want
on
to defend
Fantasy
myself
Premier
here.
League, but
Yeah.
not very good was he today? He was. Mo Salah is surprisingly quiet against us most games. I feel like all the way back to when we had Gaetan Bong mark him out of the game. It feels like we are just a team that Salah does not like to score, or not very good at scoring against.
Yeah, this goes back to one of the things that we've discussed as well, which is we tend to, or at least historically, and I also want to remove some of recent form out of the way because this is very unlike us, very unbright in the last few games. Is we tend to do a very decent job of removing the effectiveness of the key attackers of the opposing team. And you know what happens? We concede to a counter or someone smashes in a goal from somewhere or a set piece or whatever it is. But we normally we mark a number 9 out of the game, or even if it's an effective winger like Salah that cuts in, we do a decent job of dealing with them. Today, yes, he wasn't particularly special. He had an opportunity. Was it him that hit the bar at one point?
Yes, but it was very fluky, wasn't it? It was like a big deflection.
It wasn't particularly controlled. But it's impressive just because of how informed Salah has been this year. If you're pressed, he's probably, you could argue, he's the best player in the world at the moment. If not, he's top 3. Lewandowski's probably.
I was going to say Lewandowski's probably have something to say after this week, especially in the Champions League, and then bagged again today.
You could see, you may even have to throw Benzema in that conversation after this week. And I mean, Mbappe was outstanding outside of PSG's
hilarious downfall.
Amazing PSG meltdown. But yeah, it wasn't very good. Again, the game today, I don't think there was an individual player like on the Liverpool side where we were like, wow, we made them look incredible. It really wasn't that kind of game where we didn't embarrass ourselves. They're just a better football team and we can't score. So what happens when you can't score? Well, the better football team can score, so you're going to lose 1 or 2-0. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think you pretty much nailed it. Half-time comes around, substitution, Alzate off for Lallana. I'm assuming they wanted to get a bit more forward momentum going. McAllister and Lallana both on. And I think that's exactly what they were trying to do, because if you were trying to shore up defensively, when Lallana got hurt immediately, you're not bringing on Pascal Gross if that's the intention, right? You're bringing on a Moda or a Mwepu, someone like that, if you're trying to bring a bit more dynamism. Pascal Gross is not that dynamic midfielder.
He did one of his turns, though, and that was the biggest cheer at the Amex.
He did. Right by our own corner flag. He sent Luis Diaz. I think he may as well have just gone down the tunnel early there. We still wouldn't have scored anyway. No. It was a really nice turn, though. And the penalty came just about on the hour mark, which is when you really hate to see it, because that's when you start getting into that tactical tinkering stuff that Potter tends to do that can change a game. And Bissouma, man of the moment, clear as day handball, no complaints, hand miles in the air for a ball that looked like it was probably going over the crossbar. Commentators thought it was going closer to the corner flag. And it was just, I mean, I'm surprised they even bothered with VAR. Pretty clear penalty, wasn't it?
It just sums up Bissouma at the moment. It's just head's not in it. Why do you do that? Even we're recording this just after the Man U game. Tellez gave away a penalty when his hand was out, but at least he was getting his hand out the way. He was trying to get his hand out the way. Bissouma actively sort of like spread out. So, how do you not know that you don't do that now? Everyone knows that's not what you do with your arms when you're in the box and someone smacks a shot against you. And it's just, his mental approach to everything is completely gone. So yeah, that was the nail in the coffin, that the tide completely turned over that Lallana injury and the penalty combo.
Yeah, and Graham saw it too, right? Because within minutes of that goal going in, plenty of subs going on. Thiago and Jota came on for Keita and Salah. Salah, like, he picked up a knock, so triple captain curse strikes again.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Danny Welbeck come on straight away for Bissouma, a player that we know is more than capable of playing 90 minutes every other day. comes off. So clearly his head wasn't in it. We could all see it wasn't, and Potter dragged him off at 66 minutes. The game was pretty much over at that point, wasn't it? There wasn't much left to do at that point. Liverpool allowed us more of the ball, but we didn't do a great deal with it because they sat back and they've got Player of the Month Matip and Van Dijk and Arnold and Robbo at the back. It's I think Fabinho took a cynical yellow card, and that was about as we got to causing them any major issues.
I want to touch on two things. One of the first thing there is those. I really despise those professional tackles that get made. Those ones where you take the yellow card. I don't think that's. I don't think there should be just a thing in football where it's like, well, they're probably going to score. I'm just going to push them over and take a yellow card. So, well, that shouldn't really be allowed, should it? Like, oh yeah, we'll just get to use a get out of jail free. I hate that just warrants a yellow card and not something potentially more serious. Obviously, I understand it's hard to just be like, that's a red card for that. But when you're in the process of creating a counter-attack and a goal-scoring opportunity and someone just maliciously takes you out and just walks off and says, oh, okay, I get to do one of those a game. It's just an annoying little part of football. The two biggest flashpoints for me in this game came with the goalkeepers, right? Obviously, the first one was the Sanchez slap where arguably he could have been off the pitch. Yep. There's games where he gets red carded very easily.
Absolutely.
And then the other one was the Alisson thing. And I was having a discussion about this on Twitter because depending on what side of the coin you are here, you're going to argue against it. But I've looked at various angles of this. The replays weren't that great, but he looked like he had the ball fully outside the box for a millisecond.
Yep.
And, that's Alisson in a nutshell. He's chaotic keeper. He takes risks, but I think he took too much of a risk there. I think that was outside the box. If you get that red card there, suddenly we've got half an hour to do something in this game.
We've already seen Liverpool are jittery. We saw it just a couple, 2 months ago where we came back from 2 down to take a point. That if we get one back at that point, they're shitting their pants. Whether we're good enough or not, they're pooping their pants at that point, and we have every chance to fluke one past them again.
Exactly.
I thought it was outside of the box as well. Mike Dean, though, thoughts on him today? I thought he was incredibly poor, just across the board, and not just for us. I thought that there was the Keita karate kick within about a minute of the game. I'm sure that Mike Dean is probably saying it was too early. But he had no problem blowing for a foul for Bissouma when his foot was a good 2 foot lower.
Yeah, it was a nice build-up play as well there. That could have led to something, which was frustrating.
Yeah, and I can see, he put out a couple of yellow cards at the end. McAllister, Mopé, Fabinho was definitely a yellow card. But it looked like he was just quite happy to just let each other beat shit out of each other today. It looked like he was just turning a blind eye to just about everything.
He's a weird character, isn't he? And I don't think he's our best friend either. Whenever he officiates Brighton games, it always feels like, oh God, it's Mike Dean again. I'm yet to have a game officiated where I go, tell you what a great referee. And we discussed this on a few pods ago, but it's hard. It's rare when you ever get the credit as a referee. But yeah, in general, Mike Dean doesn't really appear to be a particularly good referee. He's just a name, and he keeps getting games because there's no others.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The game time is horrific. They're having to do it week in, week out. And even if they make horrific mistakes, they get a 1 game rest. And then they're straight back in because, like you say, there's no other option. We need you. We need you to keep reffing because otherwise we've got no one else.
Well, who was the guy that was actually a half decent referee that a few years ago just went and took the Saudi Arabia or UAE money and just went out there for millions?
Clattenburg?
Yes, well done. Clattenburg. And then he's went on TV and stuff and he was doing, I don't know where he is right now, but he's probably getting paid more than he got as a referee for a much easier life.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we've created a situation where it's just not sustainable to have high quality referees in the Premier League. And until that stops, there's just more Mike Deans. Clone him. We may as well clone Mike Dean and just have crap refereeing for every single game.
Let's talk about another player today. Not so much in the sphere of this game entirely, but uh, the 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 Albion social media world was running amok this week about this player after another Albion internet personality came out with no intention of causing any drama, no intention of getting engagement or clicks. He's very upset that I insinuated that.
Yeah.
And gave a very honest opinion that Robert Sanchez is highly overrated and not particularly much better than Matty Ryan, and replacements should be considered. Thoughts, feelings on Robert Sanchez? I feel like I've said it a bunch of times. He is what he is at 24. If we want him to become what Allison is at 30, we've got to roll with him because that's the kind of player he is. He's a bit of a nutter that you take the risks along with the reward. And I wouldn't be dropping him anytime soon.
There's a tweet that came out as of recording 31 minutes ago. I'm not going to say who it's from, but it says, as much as Sanchez wasn't to blame for us losing, he doesn't help our cause. And some other stuff there. Blah, blah, blah. 1-0 down. He takes 5 minutes getting the ball from behind the goal line. It's all too slow. So, yeah, I don't think this is going to go away. He is not at fault for... Yes, he could have been sent off, but he wasn't at fault for either of the goals. Salah penalty.
Penalty's a penalty, innit?
It's a penalty.
Free hit for a goalkeeper, isn't it, really?
It was, unless you're Kepa. And you get brought on to save one, and you can't save 11 penalties, and then
miss yours.
That's a
really good point. Well made.
Yeah. But no, I mean, yes, Sanchez is not the finished product. He isn't. But when he is able, he can actually put a really nice pass out. He's got great distribution. Yes, there's some mistakes. Sometimes he shanks them, sometimes he smashes. But have you seen lately? Like, who watches? I hope people listening actually watch other football games, because there's a game that happened this week in pretty much the world's most anointed youngish goalkeeper in Donnarumma, who arguably cost PSG that tie. He started the meltdown. He got pressed. He took too long on the ball. And that's when it happened. And they then just broke. Donnarumma does it. Alisson does it. Edison can be prone to it. All of these keepers are told to take risks, do slightly different things. And it's not your keeper of old. Like this, the keepers aren't taught to be like David Seaman anymore. Like that's not what this is. So yes, you're going to get glaring errors and issues from a young goalkeeper like Sanchez. Physically, he's there, and he's shown signs of being able to do impressive stuff, get the ball out, good positioning. It feels like whenever you go on a losing run, everyone tries to then try and solve what the problem is and pin it down to, oh, it's this issue, this issue, this issue. We talked about this before. It's very rarely one or two things. There's a combination, a number of things. Sanchez, for me, isn't even in the top 10 of why we're in this losing run. It really isn't.
Interesting stat, because there was that particular person and others jumping in, definitely comparing him to Matty Ryan. Shot stopping wise, I don't think there's really much difference between them. I went on FB Ref the other day and found there was very little difference between the two. And Matty Ryan was well regarded as a good shot stopper. It was just about everything else he was not great at. Distribution and coming for crosses and stopping crosses, be it corners, free kicks, or just from open play. We know he was poor at that. He is shorter. Not quite as short as some thought he was, I think. But he was not the tallest goalkeeper in the entire world. We all saw the stats put out by the other 14 this week. Robert Sanchez amongst the top creme de la creme, outside of the top 6. And I looked, only Man City and Liverpool, unsurprisingly, are also above us. So even on the other 4 of the top 6, they're below Sanchez. So he's top 5, I think, for distribution. And we knock him on this podcast sometimes for erratic distribution.
Yeah.
And the stats say that he's in top 5 in the league. Crosses, though, something we've suffered from for a long time, and something we've also knocked him for on here. He is number 1 in the league for percentage of crosses into the penalty area, which was successfully stopped by the goalkeeper. No one else in the league is better than Robert Sanchez. So I have to take an L on that because I surprised my own self finding that out, because I would have put him down in the middle of the pack. He is the best cross stopper in the league right now. So what more do you want currently? It's a crazy conversation, but I thought it was worth us bringing it up.
And it's nice to have the data and the stats to support that, because if not, you end up in just brutal speculation. And sometimes the eye test isn't the truth. Because we've chastised that man a number of times for some of the things that he's done. So much of this comes down to a goalkeeper's performance, comes down to the performance of the players in front of him. And Sanchez is being sold out at the moment with Dunk's lack of form coming back, this makeshift defense that we have, the fact that we're just perpetually caught on counterattacks. Counterattacks are goalkeeper's worst nightmare. Well, quick, typically multiple players over, when you then have to then pull out something impressive to be able to stop a 2-on-2 or something like that. Outside of that, like, Sanchez does the things you want a goalkeeper to do. So it's a weird one to blame. And I think until we tidy up the problems that we have in front of him and think about the 2 biggest things that protect Sanchez and have done historically, and you could say the same for Matt Ryan, the performances of Lewis Dunk and his central defensive partner, and the performances of Yves Bissouma, who sits in front of the defense. Both are playing crap, Bissouma more. Yep.
Yeah, spot on. Like you say, counterattacks are their worst nightmare, no matter how quick they are. E.g., Alisson, opinion, running out of his own area to try and stop one. Man of the match today, Adam? Who you got? I'm struggling. I'm really struggling, but who you got?
It honestly it didn't really feel like... It just felt like we had 11 players on the pitch. I know it seems like a really weird statement, but no one really... you didn't look around and go, oh, yeah, okay, it's a couple of nice touches. And before the first 10 minutes, I thought McAllister was impressive. Like, he did that nice little turn and flick. Lamptey actually put in a really nice ball early on and did a couple of interesting things. He was a nice outlet and threat for us. But Liverpool just completely took over the game and strangled us. And I think then I don't know who you look at. Mopé did a decent shift, but I don't think there's anyone that you could be like, even a half decent performance. Everyone was just like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I think the only one, when I was really trying earlier to think of anyone, I didn't see Cucurella do anything wrong defensively, which he's been caught out once or twice in recent games. Especially given how high he's been pushing.
He was frustrated at one point at the end of the game.
Yeah, he was. Rightfully so. And that's about as bad as good as I can call it. He wasn't caught out like he had been in recent games. That's about the only positive I have. The rest were just, like you say, they just existed within the field of play today. Not great other than that. Not great. Flossie Gonk in the chat, who is our shooting coach. Interesting question, Flossie, because if you look at the coaching staff, we don't have a single offensive-minded coach on the staff. So I would love to know, because if you look at that group, none of those people, most of them are ex-players, all of them are ex-players, and none of them have ever played in an offensive role, let alone a striker. So I don't know who that shooting coach is, Flossie. But they're probably not great.
It's Jakob Moder. He's the shooting coach. He teaches everyone how to miss the target. Yeah, but even today for me, shooting wasn't the problem. We just didn't
Uh,
get a chance.
I,
Uh,
although Trossard did sky one way over the bar that should have been on target.
well, just about sums
Would
up
have
his
been 1-1
form
then,
really
wouldn't it?
at the
And you never
moment.
know.
Um, he did. Everyone has certainly forgotten how to shoot. The problem today with Liverpool's defensive organisation, you never really got a chance where someone opened their body and you thought we could really test the keeper properly here. Outside of early on in the game, those couple of odd chances. Outside of that, there really wasn't much. I feel like after about the 10-20 minute mark, there wasn't much.
No, there wasn't. That Trossard one is the only one that I can remember that really stands out as the Welbeck header as well. Good
Yeah,
save from Allison, but it was kind of straight at him, so it wasn't it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it wasn't awful. But yeah, I think we got exactly what we deserved today. I think the XG said something along the lines of that as well. I think it was like 2.6 to 0.6. So it is what
yeah,
it is.
feels like a 0.56 kind of game. Yeah,
Yeah.
and even that feels a little generous.
Yeah. Spurs next though, just got beat by Manchester United. Cristiano's second ever hat trick for Manchester United. How's that for a surprising stat?
Yeah, and I was chatting with my mates about this just because I'm definitely team Messi. And Messi obviously was anonymous for a large portion of the game midweek. But
Yeah.
Ronaldo had not scored. He played every single game for Manchester United so far in 2022. And prior to this game, he'd scored one goal in 2022, and that was against us.
Of course it was.
We broke his duck. So he's. I don't want to get into a deep Ronaldo conversation, but he was helped out, and where this is relevant to us, he was helped out by some shocking Spurs defending. The first goal was quality. Like, we don't really have anyone on our team that can do what he just did there, so we'll give him that one.
Yeah.
But not a great press from Spurs. But outside of that, Sancho just passed across the goal, and no one marked Ronaldo for his second goal, and his third one, no one really marked him for a header either. And the one person you probably mark is Ronaldo on an attacking opportunity for a header. So
Yeah.
I hope we get one of those opportunities against Spurs. I just hope they don't come out and do a performance like I want a Middlesbrough or a Man United performance from them, not an Everton one.
Yeah. Yes. Because popping 5 past Everton, not good, is it, for the teams at the bottom right now? All of them on a race to the bottom, it feels like, this week. Everton seeding 5, Wolves putting 4 past Watford, and it was embarrassing. Villa just waltzing past Leeds as well. I know they're not in the bottom 3 yet, but Brentford undoing Burnley quite comfortably today in the end. And then, we've got a couple of games tomorrow. Leeds, Norwich, a big one for both their survival hopes. Idealistically, Norwich win that and cause absolute drama all over the place.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit tight down there, isn't it? I think we're actually looking at a scenario where Everton can actually feasibly go down,
Yeah, they've got so many games in hand at the moment, though. But they could. It would be very. It'd be funny to see. It would be funny to see it, just because I think I feel bad because he seems like a nice guy. But what does Lampard's career do if he gets Everton relegated? That'd take a while to recover, wouldn't it? I don't think Everton go down. It's between Leeds, Brentford, and Burnley for me.
You think Brentford's still in it?
I know they won today.
Today.
I mean, I think there's a chance. They've played 4 games more than Everton, Brentford. 4.
I don't see Everton winning many of them, though. That's my thing. Everton's fixtures towards they had the 2 postponed games they've still got to play, Watford and Palace. So they could beat Watford. They should be beating Watford if they want to stay up. And then the rest of them, they've got some tough games still. Manchester United, Wolves, Newcastle, who are suddenly now on form, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal. It's a lot of decent sides in there. There's not many of those 6-pointers for them left, not like Burnley and Watford that have a lot of them. They've not got many.
Yeah, I don't know how. None of us know how it's going to play out. I just feel like Everton can do something here. Leeds absolutely have to worry. I know they've got Ted Lasso now coaching them, but I mean they share the spoils of the worst form in the Premier League with us in Norwich at the moment. Leeds, minus 35 goal difference. It's just you can't look at that and feel like, at least with Everton, I feel like Dominic Calvert-Lewin is at least isn't he back at the moment? Yeah. They've got something now. I don't think is Bamford back, or
he came on as a sub this midweek, yeah.
But Phillips isn't back, is he?
No, but they're just so. I mean, the minus 35 says everything you need to know. They could have Bamford back if they want. They maybe lose 3-1 or 3-2, concede the 3.
Minus 35 is compared. I mean, combined Everton and Burnley's combined goal difference is minus 34. So that's just something else.
We've got to be looking at 7-7 draw tomorrow, aren't we? Leeds at home to Norwich.
It's going to be an impressive one. It really is. It might be the game of the season.
But for me, I'll be picking that over every other game on offer tomorrow. I don't care. That's the one. That's where the drama's going to happen, if there's going to be any. But there is also drama at the top of the table. Mr. Roman Abramovich is no longer allowed to be the owner of Chelsea Football Club. And the term up shit creek without a paddle is very apt right now for the future of Chelsea, isn't it? They're struggling to know how they're going to get their players to Lille next week in terms of monetarily wise.
They're lucky it's only France, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, imagine if it was, I was going to say Russia, but that wouldn't happen. Imagine if it was like Azerbaijan or somewhere, and they have
to schlep all the way over, and it'd be like the old days where Dennis Bergkamp wouldn't go on planes, so you'd have to. They're all just getting on various trains and ferries and stuff. What a weird situation. I think what's not to get too geopolitical and everything, but you sort of have to because the lines are so blurred here, aren't they?
I mean, it's not even blurred, right? It's a pretty straight line.
It's in it, yeah.
Between what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on with Roman is they're quite a solid Venn diagram.
It is. I think the thing that frustrates me is what we talked about when the Newcastle takeover happened, is that it's taken this event for everyone collectively across the globe, governments to come in and decide, oh, now we'll do something. Now Roman Abramovich is bad. Like, well, he's always been this. This is who he has been. And you've just collected that money this whole time. And now you're like, okay, no, now we're not okay with it. And I obviously get that there's why that's happened. But part of me feels like in a few years, we'll have this conversation about other owners of clubs when situations crop up in the world, when we absolutely shouldn't be allowing that ownership to occur now. And when I say we, I mean the Premier League and the collective fan bases. There's a big problem in football. This is one of them, and it's the most apparent right now, and the right decision's been made. Who knows what happens to the future of the club? But, I mean, Saudi Arabia are committing atrocities in Yemen right now, and they own, they own Newcastle United. They arguably allegedly someone murdered an innocent journalist connected to that group, and we're just letting them buy Kieran Trippier. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's long overdue, but it's finally the high profile example of rich owners are very much a win big, lose big too, right? We saw it with the Venkies all those years ago, but it never really got the coverage it should, because Blackburn were never where Chelsea are. But if for political reasons or for just boredom reasons, one of these big money men get bored of your club, you are in deep, deep trouble. If there is a political regime change in Saudi Arabia, Newcastle are back on the Mike Ashley train. There's no two ways about it. Where's the money coming from? And that's not that's these Middle Eastern countries are unstable at best, thanks to people like the countries we live in and everyone else with their little psyops and all that shit that they're doing. It just takes one regime change, and these political leaders. I mean, we saw it in China en masse, right?
Mm-hmm.
He got bored of soccer over there, and the Chinese Super League went to shit almost overnight because everybody was like, "Oh, you don't like it anymore? We don't like it either. Get rid."
We've already seen this in a small again relating back to Russia. That if you remember, but probably a decade ago at this point, Angie Makal, I can't even pronounce the club's name. But they started to get all that money. They signed Samuel Eto'o, Roberto Carlos.
They did.
They used to, and there was an amazing article written about this. I'll have to fish it out. We can tweet it out. Maybe it's a bit too on the nerve at the moment. But they used to fly in the players because no one wanted to live in the town where the stadium was. And they used to live somewhere way nice and then fly all these players in. And they would pay them, obviously, to attract Samuel Eto'o and co to that footballing club and destination. They were just being paid grey money, let's say, which we now obviously could probably say was absolutely more on the red and black side of things. But that's an example. The owner of that team suddenly got caught up in some level of turmoil, decided to just, all right, okay, now I need to sort of divest a little bit from this. And everyone went, and they just turned back into another club that didn't have any of that money, and they were just left in the shit.
Really?
Yeah.
They're in the third tier now, with about 800 other teams. And that's it. Back into obscurity. Malaga as well.
Yep.
You remember Malaga?
Yep.
Like, they came out of nowhere, didn't they? Same scenario, same story. We just haven't had it happen in England to one of these huge clubs, because we did have it happen to Blackburn. They've had it. Like, we watched it happen.
Portsmouth is the other big one. I mean, the other thing that we need to watch out for at the moment is PSG. There's rumors that that group are maybe the experiment, let's call it, has come to an end. Yep. Didn't get what they wanted out of it. Let's sell Mbappe and start to wind this thing down a little bit. That might not happen. It might be a pride thing, but I think they're even going to be sanctioned, probably to a certain extent. Maybe sanction's the wrong word, but I think the owner walked into the referee's room after the game and started to...
I think they had to get held back, didn't they?
Yeah, get aggressive. So there's going to be there's a reckoning that's occurring. I think Chelsea is the first domino that falls, and it might take a while for some of the others to fall as well. But it's a tricky situation. I think we've all been happily feeding off of, say, we just collective, the environment around football. As long as everyone gets their pound of flesh and their cut and their benefit out of it, everyone turns a little bit of a blind eye. The Sky get their money, the clubs get the TV money, the fans get the best quote unquote product on the pitch. But these clubs are playthings for some of these billionaire elites in these nation states, and they get bored of their toys at some point, and the problems will occur.
Yeah. And to bring it back to the Albion, because it is a Brighton podcast, and if someone's been listening for the last 15 minutes going, what the fuck's this got to do with Brighton? You should be patting yourself on the back, praising whichever deity you believe in, that Mr. Tony Bloom owns this club, because that really is the bottom line behind all of this. We as Albion fans may be looking at 5 losses on the bounce, probably 6, maybe 7, 8, 9. But we are a Premier League side, and we are not going to go down this season. We will be a Premier League side next summer. And next season, regardless of what happens in the summer as well. And that's going to be our 6th ever in a row, which is a club record as well. And it's all bankrolled by someone who's really invested, who really has a history with the club. And all this last 15 minutes, whether you agree with anybody's points of view or not, politically, whatever, the fact is, as Albion fans, we have Tony Bloom, and we are so lucky to have him. Yep,
exactly. I don't think there's anything else to say on top of that. That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yep. That's all I've got. What else do you need? Anything else? Kozlowski did play up front. Who scored has him, and SofaScore both have him up top as well. So
there you go. Okay, I wasn't fooled. I wasn't duped.
Unless they all just copy each other.
Maybe everyone was wrong.
It's all just based on one lad in the crowd emailing who scored, and that's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
But yeah,
I'm depending on when this Man City game gets rescheduled. If it does happen this month, I know it's not confirmed or anything, but if we end up going through this patch of Liverpool, Spurs, City, and we're still having this similar type of conversation, I'll start to get worried. And I don't want to be the doom and gloom about the relegation piece, but I will start to get worried at that point because, yeah, we get the Norwich game, but then we have to go play Arsenal, Spurs, Southampton, who have picked themselves up, Wolves, who have picked themselves up, Man U. We don't have an easy run in. Crazy things can happen, and something needs to change here. We have to grab it. We have to score a goal. We just have to score a goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could lose every game for the rest of the season. I'm not going to think we're going to. I still don't think we'll go down. I don't think we'll lose every game either. I think that would, like I said before, that would be a Premier League record. I don't see us committing to that. I think there's at least one team there that's going to have a bad day and we'll scumbag a 0-0 at very worst. But I will be worried just as much for the future of what's going to be happening in the summer. I tweeted it out and people aren't very happy about it, but because we were shit 20 years ago, so we should be happy. But the fact of the matter is, if we want to continue to grow in this division and we want to become a top 10 club doing it the right way that the Albion talk about and have preached about and they're clearly working on, because we see it year in and year out. I don't think they're lying. I think they know exactly what they're trying to do. I think most do if they take the emotion out of it. How are you going to sell this club to a player in the summer? This is going to be our 5th year in a row. We'll be finishing in the bottom 5 or 6 if we continue with this form. We could turn it around. We've done it 2 or 3 times this season already. But if it continues on this trajectory, we're a bottom 6 club again. We're paying bottom 6 money and wages, and we're losing 2 or 3 of our best players. How do you sell this club as a club that is going to be a top 10? That's my concern more than going down. I guess going down is the byproduct, but I'm 1 year away from being worried. But that's a concern as well, I think.
It is, and the Premier League is not going to get easier. Well, I suppose unless Chelsea don't have any money anymore, I guess then it sort of does. But something has to change here, and I think that's the biggest part around your statement. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I also do want to make sure that people on Twitter, people listening, don't just think that these conversations that we're having are purely negativity. These are awkward conversations that we need to have about the prospective future of this club, and they might not be that fun to have, but they're worthwhile having. But just because you put your head in the sand and just go, oh no, let's support the club, everything's going to be good, we'll figure it out, we'll get the best players here, blah, it doesn't help anything. It's at best it's sort of just mild delusion. Something needs to change, and whether that is a slightly more I don't think we could necessarily say a blue chip player, but like signing Lallana when we did was a statement of intent, right? Not the player that he once was, not the player that everyone thought he could ever be. But when you sign a player of that pedigree at the twilight of career, albeit, that rallies people, galvanizes the team, and it makes people look around and go, well, if he's good enough, like he's played in Champions League's finals, like I can go to Brighton. Now, if we clear house and suddenly you're looking at a team that is without Basuma, we've offloaded potentially others, you have to do something. Tony Bloom has to make some form of signing or do something in the club where we don't just go on a downward trajectory in this, what I would think of this as sort of a rebuilding off season that we start to head into. And Dev hopefully can be a part of that, but he's not going to prove that to anyone until he does it. No one's going to care about his stats from Belgium when the first minute he starts playing here is, what have you done for me lately? And we have to turn around yes, I know everyone's still living off of the amazing start to our season, but we have not beaten a side that isn't currently below us in the table since September of last year, where we beat Leicester. The sides that we've beaten in the Premier League this year are Burnley, who we think are going to go down, and then obviously we got battered by them. Watford twice. Brentford twice. Potentially like at the risk, maybe a risk of going down. Sort of a bit of a jammy result against Leicester. And then a 3-2 against Everton. Who we talked, every one of those sides, bar Leicester, we talked about as relegation candidates. We have to do better than that.
Facts. Yeah, I think we'll end on that, I think, because the games don't stop coming. We have Spurs midweek before a bit of a break, unless they do schedule a City game in between there. But as the days go on, it becomes less and less likely, doesn't it? Because they need to give a certain amount of heads up and stuff like that. So they're probably keeping an eye on those cups in Europe and seeing if they drop out, and we can just slot into that one of those midweek spots. I think they're hoping that that's going to happen. Man City don't look like they're going to be giving up anything anytime soon, though. Maybe a bit of a waste of time, but we'll go from there.
Let's see. Let's get something midweek against Spurs, eh? At least a goal. If we can't score against Eric Dyer, I give up.
Yeah, fair. That's fair.
All right. Cheers, all. Thank you for listening.
Have a good one.